Hello, my name is Eloise and I work for the Catholic Church Archives and Heritage Collection here in Hobart. The collection I help care for includes paper records, photographs, newspapers, church plate, baptism and marriage registers, textiles and books. I imagine for those of you starting out with your family history that you would also be taking care of similar items, well, perhaps not baptism registers, but letters, photographs, birth certificates, books, and other treasured family items. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can store family history materials safely at home to ensure that they are preserved for the future generations of your family. I will focus on papers, photographs, and books. When it comes to storing your family history objects and papers, the things you want to avoid are dust, mould, damp humid conditions, excessive heat or cold, excessive sunlight, insects, rats and mice who love to eat photographic paper. Store your objects off the floor, don't leave them in a shoebox under the bed, keep them out of direct sunlight and in a clean, dry environment. When handling objects, make sure you have clean, dry hands, and if you're being extra cautious, you could also remove jewellery. White cotton gloves were once recommended, but they can catch on papers and make it difficult to handle them. Twice washed hands are better. Sometimes I have to work with papers or books that are really dusty or dirty, or large files of paper from 1970s photocopiers, which really irritates my skin. In this case, I use nitrile gloves, which protect my hands, but still allow for easy handling of the papers. Nitrile gloves are inexpensive and can be purchased from supermarkets. What you're aiming for with storing your paper records is that eventually you will not have to handle them at all. Taking photos of each item you have is a great start and will also ensure that if something is damaged, you still have a record of it. Remove any staples, pins or metal fasteners. They will, if they haven't already, rust and damage the paper. You can buy a staple remover from places like Officeworks, and I use this one all the time. If you have papers that have been rolled or folded, try to flatten them and remove rubber bands as well. However, if you think it will damage the paper further by trying to flatten it, it's definitely better to leave it as it is. Documents that have always been folded, for example legal documents, are best kept as they are. Now I'll show you how we store paper records here at the archive. We use these. They are mylar sleeves and we love them. They come in various sizes, A5, A4, foolscap and A3. They are polyester, inert, slightly rigid and perfect for storing precious or fragile paper records, like the letters written by your great-grandmother. Once in the sleeve you can handle it without worrying about damaging it. We then put these into archival quality manila or wallet style folders and then into an archive box like this. But really, once you have your paper in a mylar sleeve, it doesn't matter what sort of folder or enclosure you use, as the paper is protected by the mylar. Mylar sleeves, however, are not cheap. To give you an idea, a packet of 25 A4 sleeves is about $28. An alternative would be to buy a small roll of mylar rather than individual sleeves, and use 3M double-sided sticky tape to make your own. I do this for large items such as architectural drawings. I cut 2 sheets, tape 3 sides only on the first sheet and place the second sheet over the top, and just make sure you leave enough of a border on either side of the tape. For less significant papers, we use archival quality folders and put these straight into folders. If you have documents on photocopied paper from the 1970s or anything on fax paper, make sure you make a new copy of it, as the print will fade over time. We'll move on to photographs now. It's a good idea to use gloves to handle photographs. This is because the emulsion layer, the top layer on the photograph, can be damaged by acids and sweat on your hands. We use the nitrile gloves that I mentioned earlier, and try to handle the photograph on the edges too. Because photographs are an unstable item, meaning that acid can be transferred from one photo to another, They need to be stored so they are not touching each other. We use these archival quality albums with these inserts, which come in lots of different sizes to suit the different sizes of photos we have. It's important to ensure that any wrappers, enclosures or pockets used to store photos are made of chemically inert materials. Don't use anything made of PVC, for example, as it breaks down with any moisture, which then produces hydrochloric acid, which will damage your photos beyond repair. If you don't want to go to the expense of purchasing these albums and inserts, there is another option. You can buy sheets of acid-free or archival quality paper and simply fold a sheet in half and use it to enclose the photo. This will protect it and keep it separate from the other photos in your collection. Photos from my childhood are in those albums from the 70s and 80s with a cellophane cover and the adhesive on the page. Many of the photos are stuck to the page. Ideally, you should try to remove these photos if you think it can be done without tearing them. You can use unwaxed dental floss to slide under the photo to dislodge it from the page. I was once told that you can use a hairdryer to soften the adhesive. I've not done this before, and I'd be very cautious as I think the heat could buckle the photo, but if you're game, proceed with caution and use a low setting. If you have an album like this one, I would seriously consider leaving it as it is, as the album itself is an object of significance in your family story. But it can get tricky because the black card and paper often contains sulphur, which tarnishes the photos that, as you probably know, contain silver. A compromise could be to keep the album and remove the photographs if you were worried about the condition of them. Do check these sort of albums though for any sign of mould and insects. You can use a soft brush to gently remove any dust or dirt. A soft, new, unused makeup brush would be fine. And finally, don't use paper clips or other fasteners on photographs, as they can damage the emulsion layer on the photograph. And don't be tempted to mend photographs with any sort of sticky tape. The adhesive will eventually break down and your photograph will be stained. Adhesive tape also does the same thing to paper documents too. It is best to avoid writing on the back of your photos, but if you must, use a soft B-type pencil or better still, an archival pen like this, and write on the edges rather than through the middle. I'll finish today by talking about books. Books are generally easy to care for. As a first step, use a soft brush like I mentioned earlier to gently remove dust. Store it upright and out of direct sunlight. If you're concerned about dust, covering the top of the book once it's on a shelf is a good idea. You could use archival quality card or a sheet of mylar. Here at the archives, we have a small collection of rare and valuable books. We don't keep these on open shelving, but rather have made customised boxes out of archival card for each book. If you have books like this, you could also consider storing it in a box. You don't necessarily need an archival quality box, but you could line an ordinary box with archival tissue, archival quality paper, or even mylar. But don't wrap it like a present. Some airflow is needed. Thank you.